What up, what up? Welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and you're listening to the number one podcast when it comes to demystifying and uncovering what goes into a successful crowdfunding campaign. So for me, this is a complete labor of love, going through not only Kickstarter campaigns, Indiegogo campaigns, but also talking about equity crowdfunding and really how to smash your goal, right? When it comes to putting a new product out there, whether that is a physical product, a board game, whether that's something more creative like a comic book, art project, etc. I really try to document that for you on this podcast so you can walk away with valuable lessons and tactics and tips that you can then apply to your upcoming campaign. Now, the number one, I think, rule here when it comes to putting yourself out there, when it comes to crowdfunding, is just surrounding yourself with success stories. I can't tell you how underrated this is. We all like to talk about like the nuts and bolts and the tactics and the strategy, and we get to all of that obviously on this show. But more important than that is putting yourself in the right mindset to even take a risk. Think about it. In order to not only put yourself out there, to invest in your project, and to really bring something new into the entire world, it takes guts, man. It takes gumption, right? You got to have a little bit of fire in the belly, a little bit of passion to be able to do that. And specifically, if you want to hit it big, like today's podcast episode, we talked with a creator who had more than 5,000 backers, right? More than $360,000, which has been raised on Kickstarter. If you want to have like that level of success, you got to be willing to lay it on the line. You got to be willing to work with people and teammates. And you'll learn about that in today's podcast episode, how this creator was able to just assemble a rock solid team of all-stars behind their project and really knock this thing out of the park. Some of the really great tactics when it comes to marketing, etc. But if there is one thing that I think you should take away, it's that this is possible. And the more you can just like listen to these success stories, download this information in your head, let it hit, let some of those lessons and teachings really just sink in, the easier it's going to be for you when it comes to actually launching this, because you go through that period of like uncertainty, right? Of hesitation, of I don't know if this is right. Did I waste all of my time? And that's when you have to kind of summon up all of these different success stories, because I can't tell you, literally in your life or throughout, your entrepreneurial ventures or other creative people are going to tell you opposite. And it's so important that you just maintain that rock solid mindset. And that's really what, to me, bringing these stories to you is going to allow you to do, is it gives you reference points. It gives you almost secondhand experiences. And that gives you a tremendous amount of confidence, gives you tons of wisdom, and also obviously gives you those tactics and strategy that you can actually apply to your campaign. So we'll get into that in just a second. And if you want to get like the number one go-to source when it comes to that, and you really want to speed up this process, I highly recommend checking out my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. There's a version available on Audible for you. Just go to the link, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio, crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. Go to that link, grab a copy of the Audible version, and continue to just infuse your mind with valuable information and those golden nuggets that can really help you smash your goal with a Kickstarter campaign. And in addition, if you want to learn a little bit more, you can always go to my website, crowdcrux.com, and I got a YouTube channel out there. But without further ado, let's jump into today's podcast episode and learn how this creator was able to raise over 5,000 able to attract over 5,000 backers, raise over 360K for Into the Motherlands, the original Afrofuturist TTRPG, and it's coming up. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we are talking with an incredible success story. This is for Into the Motherlands, an original Afrofuturist TTRPG. This campaign has raised over $300,000, more than 5,000 backers that has been pledged, and got a lot of great insights for you today. We have B. Dave Walters on the podcast. Welcome. How you doing?
Great. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Do you think you can get started just kind of introducing a bit about your project and just warm the audience up to that a little bit?
Yeah. So Into the Motherlands, it is a tabletop RPG. So we're in the vein of Dungeons and Dragons for people that don't know about tabletop gaming. The actual mechanics and things are very different, but the concept is the same, just to give you a point of reference. And we were raising money to produce the full-scale game. So the core rule book, a deluxe rule book, and some other accoutrement to go along with it.
Very cool. And from what I understand, you've also had a bit of experience with Kickstarter before.
Yes, I've done 2 previous Kickstarters that both funded and an Indiegogo. So this was 4th overall for me.
And when did you first start your first Kickstarter?
It would have been 2019. I completely lost all track of 2020 because, time is a
We
flat
all did.
circle. No, no, no. They were both in 2020. No, I did three in 2020.
Oh,
And
geez.
yeah. And then
That's
and then this one now. Yeah.
that's awesome. What kind of led you to starting that first one? Had you done any kind of game work before, or was this the first one?
So the very first one was a graphic novel for Electropunk that I did with a friend of mine, Jeff Wamister, and I was aware, and I realized we're not to the tip giving section of this just yet. But if I had to start with something, it would be to know that Kickstarter and crowdfunding in general is where you go to leverage your audience, not to create your audience. So we were aware that this was something that we wanted to do, but we wanted to build up a certain amount of traction first with our own individual following. My partner there, Jeff Wamister, is the director, or was the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy animated series for Disney and had a bunch of credits there with Disney and Warner Brothers. And then I had my own thing that I'd built up from my streaming work. We'd kind of gone back and forth about when was the right time and realized there never really is a right time. So it basically was like just before the pandemic. I'll look here in a second to see when the dates are, but it basically was right
Yeah.
before the bottom fell out of the world as we did the Electropunk Kickstarter.
And when you first brought that product to light, you mentioned like working a little bit in the streaming world. What was that like? Finally having a bunch of people being able to sample your work and being able to see that. What did that feel like for you?
I mean, it's great. You have a thing in your head, you have an idea or a hope that you think is going to be a great idea, but you never know 100%. Again, I've now done this 4 times and have a fifth one on deck, but every time you hit the button, you don't know if anybody's actually going to want to back the project or so support you in the work you're doing, especially because there's a world of difference between somebody saying they want a thing and actually opening up their wallet to purchase a thing, which when you're surveying people and asking around about what people will want, keep that in mind and very heavily weight the no's. Weight the no's much more than the yeses when people are telling you what they want. But the idea of seeing it come to life, quite frankly, it's surreal. Seeing the project come together, seeing the art come together, seeing the tears come together. And then, when you have that moment that it all lights up, is very fulfilling. With Electropunk, with two of my projects came down. I did with Electropunk and a documentary I did on Indiegogo. Both of those came down to the wire in funding. They funded in like both of them funded on the 29th day, I think. In fact, the documentary funded on the 30th day. The other two, which was Into the Motherlands, that we're talking about here, and another one that I did behind the scenes for another company. So I won't say which one that was. If you know what it is, you know what it is, but otherwise I won't bring it up. But it funded very quickly. So I've experienced both. I've experienced very fast, quick success, and I've experienced nail biting down to the wire success.
And for you, what would you say is your big motivating factor? Is it that you want to tell these stories? Is it to be able to do the artwork and to incorporate that into a project? Like, what's your big motivating factor, would you say?
To be able to take the audience on a journey. I take storytelling very, very seriously. That's my craft that I've dedicated my life to. And in my mind, storytelling is what makes us human. Anything we do, another creature does. And in the fullness of time, when we figure out what crows and dolphins and elephants are saying to each other, they may be storytelling too. But for right now, we're the only ones that can sit around a fireplace and talk about Hercules and take real actionable life lessons from that and carry that forward and apply it. And so that's something that I love. And so having these characters and situations in settings that I love, both in the graphic novel of a story that we're telling and now with the game of a sandbox that you can go play in, is something that is really exciting to me because life is difficult. It's always been difficult. It's been incredibly difficult for a lot of people recently. And just giving people a break and an escape is something that really matters a lot to me.
Is there a story in the genre that you like that you feel has impacted you a lot or been sort of like an inspiration for you?
Star Wars, believe it or not. I think I'm probably the only Star Wars fan that doesn't hate Star Wars, even though I didn't necessarily care for some of the more recent films. But I mean, they had their moments. But those mythos, what George Lucas created has been something that has brought me hundreds, possibly thousands of hours of joy over my life, and shaped a lot of my outlook on things in ways that even I'm not aware of. I mean, Return of the Jedi was the first movie I ever saw in the theater, and the only reason I remember it is because I remember the Emperor's Red Guards so vividly. Like, that's one of the, like, when I search back into my life, it's kind of like my mom's face, them singing happy birthday when I'm like 2, and the Emperor and his guards. Yeah.
That highlight, yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's super powerful, and now you're definitely doing that in a multitude of different formats, right? So,
Exactly. Yep.
yeah, that's super cool. How does this campaign rank with some of the other ones you've done? Is this the biggest one you've done? Is it medium sized?
Oh, having broken 360 grand, this is definitely the biggest one so far. Yeah, definitely the biggest one so far. I say so far because, now I've set the benchmark. I got to beat it. But yeah. And honestly, that's what I anticipated. I told the team from the beginning that we'd get between 3 and 400,000. And I don't think anybody believed me. And I knew from the beginning, just from having surveyed the marketplace, having an idea of our reach, having an idea what we had to offer, that number just made sense to me. Yeah, I guess that was borne out by the end result. It was a calculated mix of the tiers and the stretch goals and the outreach strategy to get people talking about it and to keep people talking about it and keep people coming back. I knew if we did those 3 things, it was going to work, and it did.
Do you think that the choice of format also played a role? I mean, you're doing now this game where people can participate versus, the comic book. Like, how do you think that choice made a difference?
Yes, in the sense, so the comic book, the graphic novels, an all new IP. So that was basically on the strength of my following, Jeff's following, and people that could look at the pictures and think the pictures were cool, right? But they didn't necessarily have a point of reference. Now with this, we've already done 2 seasons of a Twitch stream for this IP, Into the Motherlands. And I think people get their heads around a game you can play easier than a comic book you may or may not enjoy, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because a graphic novel is kind of a subjective experience. The story is the story, but with a tabletop game, you make the story what you want it to be. So in that, I think just the concept of a game has a wider reach than the concept of a graphic novel. But that being said, now, if we were to do electropunk all over again right now, it probably would make more money. If the exact same project that went up then went up now, instead of making 45 grand, it probably would have pulled in maybe 60. I don't think it would have doubled or anything. I'll tell you a story about that, actually, about the Electropunk Kickstarter. We've been working on this project since 2013, and we'd gone back and forth about it multiple times and tried to ramp up, and he'd get busy, I'd get busy. We both have freelance work and commissions we do. And early last year, I think around February, I had a dream, just full-blown Christmas story. Woke up in the middle of the night, like if a ghost had been there covered in chains, it would have been the same thing. And it was like, do the Electropunk Kickstarter, do it right now. Like literally, like something woke me up. I was like, do it right now. I mean, if I could have grabbed my laptop and started typing right then, I would have. And the next day I called Jeff and I was like, got to do it. We have to do it right now. And he was like, well, but I want to do this. I want to do that. This isn't right. This isn't right. And I was like, no, let's go. And so from that morning to the moment we turned it on was the fastest it could have possibly been done. Yeah, to get it up and out.
Yeah, that's insane. And I honestly think that's a huge hallmark of a lot of the projects I talk with is there has to be the sense of urgency, like to get it done,
Yep. Yeah. There's something called the Spartan Paradox, which I will very poorly paraphrase, although I highly recommend, dear listener, you Google the Spartan Paradox, and the videos probably will be like 2 or 3 minutes when you find it. It's the guy who founded the Spartan race talking. And the gist of it is, we don't change when we want to change. We change when we have to change. You have to give yourself a date with something difficult, like pick the date. By this time, I will do this hard thing. And then you will start preparing and you will rise to the occasion. If you do the opposite and you're like, well, I'll do this hard thing when I'm ready, ready never comes. So I highly recommend that to people within reason. Of course, you still want to be as polished as possible. But if you got a project that you're thinking about, look at the calendar. As of the time of this recording, it's June 23rd. Say to yourself, July 30th, my project's going up. Come hell or high water, it's going up July 30th. And then act accordingly and conduct yourself accordingly. And if you're exerting your maximum effort and something you need just isn't ready until August 2nd or whatever, that's fine. The world will keep turning, but you will know that you have exerted your maximum effort and intention towards making it happen. And the more passionate you are about it, the more passionate your team will be about it and actually make it happen. And because otherwise it'll be a someday maybe goal, and someday maybe goals don't happen.
I love that. Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there, when you said that. I love that. So you basically kind of plowed forward and were able to get this project out there and then able to launch more. What's something that you wish you knew when you were kind of just getting started with the Kickstarters, either with the reward tiers or what you should have done? Any thoughts on that?
Wisdom is knowledge multiplied by experience. So I will say there's nothing that I was like 100% unaware of, because I'm a researcher, I'm a planner. I read things, I talk to people. I have the mutant ability to learn from other people's mistakes. That being said, the real work of the project is after the project funds, and things like fulfillment and stuff of that nature can become a bugbear. Become very, very wary of a lot of physical add-ons to give with stuff because it can get out of hand quickly. Like if you are going to do pins, like for instance, enamel pins are a big deal. Or we did a lot of dice. If you're going to have thousands of sets of dice, well, those got to live somewhere. And then somebody's got to go through and pick each one and make sure they get mailed to the right person. The logistics of it become unwieldy quickly if you're not wary of that. You can counter that, of course, by one, limiting the number of your physical add-ons, and two, when you're negotiating deals with distributors, work it out where they're going to fulfill it, where they're not going to send all the tchotchkes to you. They will send the tchotchkes to the people. Things like that make your life a whole lot easier.
So basically, yeah, think about the fulfillment a tiny bit before you begin the process would be one of the big ones there. When it came, you said something earlier that kind of stuck with me, which was you were kind of working a bit to build your audience ahead of time.
Yes.
How did you do that? Were you just putting out like Twitch live streams, or what were you actually doing there?
Again, I myself have a pretty big presence in the streaming community, so people know me with these games and things. But I will tell you, they didn't necessarily know me for a graphic novel. I'd written one comic book, Dungeons and Dragons: A Darkened Wish, so I had some reputation there. Here's the secret of it, basically. You have to start letting people think of you as the person that creates the kind of thing that you're about to make. Like, let me give you a different example. I have a fitness line that is going to come to market soon. I've wanted to do that for a while. So over the last 6 months to a year, when I'm working out and stuff, I'll post a post-workout selfie, or I'll mention, that it was a difficult workout that day, or I started doing something. The post-workout I do is like blue, and when it's in the bottle, it's blue. So I started doing my blue potion recovery times when right after I'd work out, I drink my recovery drink, and I talk about something else completely different. But the point is, I was very intentionally creating that link in people's minds between me and fitness, so that when this other thing comes out, it won't be completely out of the blue. Like if I were to launch a line of steaks tomorrow.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured, I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist. Fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately.
I mean, I've built up a certain amount of goodwill in the community that some people would probably try it on principle, but for the most part, people don't know me as a cooking guy. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? So they're going to
Yeah.
be like, I don't know why you're cooking. Okay. Versus people do know me as a storytelling guy. So if you're making a board game, if you're making a movie, if you're making start putting content out about that stuff. And I don't necessarily mean just blowing your own horn, like start talking about other board games that are really great. Talk about what you like about them, what you don't like about them, what you'd improve about them. Start establishing yourself. I mean, I hate saying thought leader because it's such a buzzword, but just a person that knows what they're talking about. Like you,
Yeah.
Salvador, have done all these crowdfunding podcasts. Now, if you put out a book or if you do a stream, people can be like, oh, yeah, that dude knows what he's talking about. That's what you
Yeah.
need. And contrary to popular opinion, you don't need millions and millions of followers. There's a concept known as 1,000 loyal fans, which you should also Google, dear listener. But again, the gist of it is you don't need tens of thousands of people to support your work. You need about 1,000 people that will buy anything you put out, and you can build a career off of that.
Very well said. So you really have a very pinpoint on your community, it sounds like, and almost how they're thinking of you and seeing you and what they're expecting from you, right?
I mean, I certainly try to. One thing people know about me is I don't do anything at random. Anything I do, I have thought through. Part of the reason why my career is where it is, when I got my very first opportunity, when I walked in the door at Geek and Sundry, I knew 100% what I was trying to accomplish from day one, and then I did that. When I say that, it was a conceptual thing. I knew I wanted everybody to know that I would be easy to work with, that I would always be on time and prepared, and that I would always give it my all with anything that we were doing. And I knew if I accomplished those three things, I would never want for gigs. And that has proven to be true. So for you in your segment, I mean, those three things kind of apply anywhere. People always want to be cool, be on time and ready, and do your best. It's pretty much universally applicable.
100%.
Yeah, but whatever it is in your area, start thinking of what you want to be known as, because that's what branding is. All branding
Yeah.
is reputation.
Yeah.
What do
Well,
people
just
know
as
you as?
so just as some pushback, some people out there are like, I hear you, that makes a lot of sense, but what if what I like is too niche? Like, what if there's not a market for it? What do you say to people like that who, don't want to do something super generic and have a really specific interest? Is that still something they should do?
I mean, in the year 2021, I would argue nothing's too niche. It's just, I think when you're into something that is super niche, you have to be more realistic, which again is a word that I don't usually like to use, but more realistic about what your results are going to be. Like if you want to do an avant-garde noir black and white short film where everybody's speaking backwards, there's a couple thousand people in the world that want to see that. It's not going to make $100 million. It just won't.
Yeah. Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So if you have like a really quirky, offbeat game or something, you can bring that into manifestation easily. Now, easier than ever. Just understand it almost certainly won't be the next Monopoly. As long as that's what you have in your head, yeah, do it.
And is there anything that you use to kind of gauge interest or demand before going full fledged with the product or onto Kickstarter? Like, are you surveying people? Are you asking their thoughts? What point do you begin doing that?
I do, but as I mentioned before, I put a lot less weight on that than you might think. Or when I do those things, I heavily weight the no answers, because people will see a cool thing and think, I want that thing. But that's different from they will pay for that thing. Every single one of us has walked through a store, saw something, and was like, oh, yeah. And then immediately walked out without that thing.
Yeah.
The thing that I do, and part of the reason why I've been successful with these Kickstarters, is I go through and I research the top performing ones in the category. And I also research the ones that are even the closest to what I'm trying to do. And then I look at what they did and I adapt that and try and improve upon it to the best of my ability. It's shamelessly duplicating what others have done that has worked before, and adapt it to what you're trying to put out, of course. But I looked at the ways people structured their Kickstarters, what I found aesthetically pleasing. I looked at how many tiers people had on average. I looked at what the price points were, because that's kind of what the marketplace is accustomed to paying, things like that. So I built it off the back of existing success. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You might have a new kind of tire, you might have a new kind of hubcap, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, that's a great analogy, I think. One of the other kind of controversial opinions we've gotten on the show is the idea of stretch goals. And some people don't like them, some people swear by them. It sounds like you're more on the side of viewing them as being useful. Is
Yeah,
that kind of
I swear by him. I swear by him. Again, I apologize that I don't want to be overly simplistic to your audience, but there's two main differences between Kickstarter and Indiegogo, for my money, of why I've been successful at both, and when I choose which one I want to use, which Kickstarter being the all or nothing funding and Indiegogo having the possibility of the flexible funding. The all or nothing funding, a lot of people don't understand, especially when they first get into this, is to protect you. It's to protect everyone. It's to protect the customers. It's to protect the creators. Because if you need $40,000 to make a new kind of bowling ball, and 1,000 people put up $20,000, you don't have enough money to make your bowling ball, and now you have 1,000 people that are expecting it, and everybody's going to be disappointed. If the flexible funding, like for my documentary, I used that for Indiegogo because I knew, I was like, well, if we got X dollars, we could do Y thing. If we got this much money, we could do this thing. If we got this much money, we could do this thing. So it really was flexible, but it's almost kind of like the stretch goals were kind of baked into it, almost with that. So the question you got to ask yourself when you're doing these projects is, what's the minimum that you actually need, that you really need? Then subtract 10% because of all the fees that you're going to pay. Then subtract your taxes, So take the minimum you need and then pad that by about 25%, probably, maybe more, depending what your costs are. But pad it a little bit. And then that's the goal that you need to set for your Kickstarter. I'm very much of the opinion it is better to set a smaller goal, hit it, and then have the momentum of having built some success. Because once it succeeds, it's a proven concept and people want to jump on the bandwagon. And then the stretch goals, the logic behind the stretch goals is two things: to get people to keep returning to the page to look, because those repeated engagements are more likely to add an add-on, to up their pledge or something like that. And more importantly, to tell their friends. Even if somebody has spent all the money that they're going to put up for this, but they now have a personal vested interest in seeing you get to the next tier of support, then they're going to go out and tell all their people about it. And that is the best advertising possible, because it is the cheapest, because it's free, and it carries the most weight because you're far more likely to listen to a friend than watch a commercial. So yeah, 1,000% yes to stretch goals.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I can also see how it kind of creates that feeling of ownership almost over the project. It's like they're a part of the community more so than just being sold something.
Yep, it's something you did together. It's something you made happen. If you notice all the messaging in the Motherlands Kickstarters, we did it. Thank you. We did it. Because of you, this happened. Because then people feel like they're a part of something. And quite frankly, it's borne out in the numbers. I can already tell you, man. Okay, so my background is marketing. That's my actual discipline. The games and the acting and all of that stuff is just fun things that I happen to be good at and have taken off. But my actual discipline is marketing. And I can already tell you that the anti-stretch goal group are the same type of people that say things like, I don't want to sell anything. Like they think, if you build it, they will come. And that's just not true. That it's like, well, this is what I need and people should want it and I shouldn't have to do anything other than that. And I'm like, yeah, maybe not, but that's not life. That's not the world. And there's in an absolute pinch, there's ways that you can. Let me tell you a different story before to make my point. Before I make the point, people of a certain age might remember the Coors commercials in the 80s, where it's like cold brewed in the Rockies. The water is 12 degrees and then is put through this whole process. All beer is made that way. All beer is made the exact same way. It's just at the time, nobody knew that. So the fact that Coors actually listed the process of how this is done made it seem way more impressive. So with your project, if you're already planning on doing a hardbound book, you can put up your Kickstarter for the soft cover, lower your costs, and then have your first stretch goal be a hardcover. You were going to do that anyway, you know? If you wanted to do glossy pages, the second stretch goal is now it's going to have glossy pages. The product is becoming better. We're going to add more pieces, more maps, more minis. You can create the project that you wanted all along, but then break it into smaller pieces that is one going to make it more likely to actually happen and make it feel like you're building up this progress all the way along. So you can have the you can have it both ways, even if you're stretch goal averse.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So when it comes to your project, it sounded like you were super well planned out, and it sounds like you do a lot of your marketing activities that way. Was there anything that surprised you with this project that you wanted to share with the listeners, or anything that was a surprise in the way of the rewards that people were interested in? Anything that surprised you?
So I actually have not completely dug in to the actual individual add-ons and things that were purchased yet. I'm very consciously allowing myself a couple of days, and I'm even going to take a little vacation this weekend, and then Monday we dive in and it's going to be a year of work, you know? But I will say how adamant people were about wanting things like minis, how adamant they were about wanting things like enamel pins and plushies. None of those things are my jam. I'm aware of them, but I was like, really? But that's why we just put them up as add-ons and not as tiers. I would caution people with that to be very careful of what you include in the tiers and what you just make available to people that want them. But again, be mindful of your costs because it can get out of hand very quickly if you're not careful. I think it happened like I thought it was going to happen, but it still was a bit nail biting in the process, if that makes sense. Somebody told me I was of the opinion that I thought that you'll do about a third of the Kickstarter in the first 2 days. You'll do about a third in the middle where it always lulls, and you do about a third in the last 2 days when your momentum kicks up. Somebody else said to me, you'll do 3 times the first day, which I didn't believe at the time, but we literally did 3 times the first day. So, I mean, I guess those numbers are kind of similar, I suppose. I guess it's 2 ways of looking at the same thing. I don't know. It's just weird that to actually hear them say you will do 3 times day one, and then we literally did 3 times day one.
That's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
stuck out in my mind. I would also say be strategic. Try not to be too terribly reactionary. I mean, there's definitely times with us that, you know, we sold up or we went through all the stretch goals, which is a champagne problem. Knew we wanted more stretch goals, but a lot of time there's a drive there that you're like, oh, okay, wait, now we need to do this. Now we need to do this. Now we need to do this. No, don't wait. Calm, be cool, you know? If it takes you a day or two to figure out the right thing, it is going to be okay. I promise it will. The people will still be into it when you put it up, and that's what late backing is for. If it takes you longer to put things in place and do the right thing, like I will tell you, there were items and add-ons that we thought about doing. Like for instance, people were asking for swords, like actual, like replica swords,
Yeah.
and you know, and I was like, really? You know, because I mean, yeah, the Witcher sells a lot of swords, but that's The Witcher. And I
Yeah,
was
yeah.
like, yeah, and I was like, I mean, okay, if it's dope. So we took the time, we got some renders, we put it up to people. And again, it was like 30% yes, 40% depending on the cost, and 30% no. And we didn't do it. We
Yeah.
didn't do it, you know? Because like I
think that's
said,
probably wise, honestly. Yeah.
yeah, you got to wait the nose, you know. There was other deals that we were negotiating with partners and sponsors and things, and it just it didn't come through, or we couldn't reach the right terms, so we just didn't do it. And if we get what we need, when we get what we need, we'll put it up to the backers, we'll put it up to the world, and if that excites people, then they can back it late. But we didn't want to be cornered being reactionary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. You got to manage your emotions to a degree.
Yep.
Awesome, man. It's been a lot of great stuff. I know you said you're going to be preparing for another project at some point. Where can people go to learn a little bit more about that and some of those updates?
Just follow me on the tweetagrams at @BDaveWalters. I promise you I will talk about that and 1,000 other things all right there.
Very cool. My last question for you is, if you could speak directly to the audience, to someone who, like you, they just started with their first project and they're kind of hesitating a bit about getting it out, and they think they have a cool product, but they're not sure. What's a final tip or a word of encouragement that you might want to share with them? And we can end on that note.
Understand, statistically speaking, it probably won't work the first time. I was fortunate, but I had a background in these things. And so if it doesn't work, don't panic, don't stress. Just take what you can learn from it, repackage it, and do it again. You can simplify that process with research. Look at what other people have done. Look at other projects that worked. Look at other projects that failed. And the last thing, the most you should invest in is your art. If it's a concept thing, pay for really great art. If it's a physical product, pay for really great photography. Most people are visual. They will come, they will look at it, and they will make their decision literally in 1 1/4 seconds. You have 1 1/4 of a second to hook a person's interest before they bounce. So hit them in the face with something really beautiful right at the top, and you will probably be all good. But one way or another, if you're thinking about doing something like this, do it. Oh, and I'll say one last thing. My DMs are open at @BDaveWalters on Twitter. If you really need help, you can hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, man, for coming on. Appreciate it, and good luck with your next project.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. I hope you took a lot of good advice and tips away from today's interview. And like I said in the beginning, if nothing else, at least you're beginning to feed your mind and feed your soul with those success stories that are required for kind of giving you that secondhand experience. You can gain wisdom from your own experiences in life, but by listening to other people talk about theirs, you can also kind of gain a little bit of secondhand wisdom, and that luck can kind of rub off on you almost, if you want to put it that way. So just hearing about other people and how they think and how they went about their campaign, it's priming your mind to really be this fertile ground of coming up with incredible marketing ideas going forward, of having that level of confidence and gumption that you need to have when going into a campaign, and also just kind of knowing some of the pitfalls there to be aware of as you're going out there and you're trying to smash your goal with Kickstarter and you're trying to raise more money using crowdfunding. So if you want more advice and tips like this, I have a YouTube channel that I put out information. You can search my name, Salvador Briggman. I also got a website, crowdcrux.com. I got my book, The Kickstarter Launch Formula. We can check out at crowdcrux.com/Kickstarter audio. And finally, if you want to learn a little bit more about, so one of the things I don't really talk too much on this show about, which is PR and media attention. How do you get into the media? I actually have a free course for you that you can check that out. I'm going to link you up in today's show. You can go to crowdcrux.com/PR. That's crowdcrux.com/PR, crowdcrux.com/PR. Just go to that link, put in your information, and I'll start sending you some lessons on how to really get into the media and rack up some of those hits. So I hope you enjoy that. Thank you so much for listening. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman, and I will see you next time.